So I really briefly want to talk through how we actually doing the advanced diploma technical and vocational teaching in terms of the actual blended pedagogy that we're using with our actual written materials. So here's the one on vocational pedagogy that I've actually written. The first thing to notice is that it's about 200 pages long. It takes a hell of a lot of work to get going. Everything on this thing is Creative Commons. There's nothing that is kept aside. All can be published. It's going to be published not only by UKZN, but definitely by the Department of Higher Education through SAIDI. So you've got huge reach for it. Now, the next thing I want to kind of show you is I just want to go through some of the examples so that you can actually see it. Let's get one which is actually quite effective. Just to say that what we've done is, let's say we've got the challenges of working with the curriculum. And that's what we're trying to understand. Now, what we will have done in our program is we will have gone and done interviews with lecturers to find out what their issues are. We'll have published those on YouTube. You'll be able to click on them and watch them. And then what we do is we start to interrogate what they're saying and ask questions around it. And then once we start to ask the questions, it starts up activities. And then we try to develop a really detailed understanding of what the issues with the curriculum actually are. There's all sorts of videos which we've made, which you can then watch, which aren't interviews, but actually graphic videos which really catch the conceptual way things work. And I'll talk about that separately. And then often what we do is we've got all sorts of designs with kind of flow diagrams, which you're trying to make sure work. But the biggest and most important thing is slowly but surely we start to scaffold what we're doing, get them to make some analytical choices, get them to start to analyze lessons properly with videos which will help them to do it, which we've made. And then we get to a point where what we're starting to do, and I'm going to move to this as we move along, is we start to actively get them to actually analyze stuff. So I just want to demonstrate that because there's huge amounts of activities and resources going on, all sorts of conceptual development and conceptual stuff. Now, for example, over here, let's just get to this point. Sorry, it was a bit confusing over there. What we're trying to do is we're using the analogy for these guys that you're working like with as a DJ with like a sliding volume sound system with a mixer. And what happens is you've got choices about how you mix things up and down. And that's how you learn to do your lessons or your lectures. It's not that one way is right or one way is wrong. You mix and you match as you go on. Now, those of you that know me know my book, Cracking the Code. And obviously that's going to go in here, which starts to teach them how to make proper pedagogic choices. But the problem is you've got to make sure when you do this that you actually start to configure it into a technical and vocational context. So for example, over here, we've taken Lucas, we've worked with his understanding of the choices you make, and we've put that into the same kind of language, conceptual language that I use in my course. And then what happens is you've got all sorts of things where you've got to think about the student, you've got to think about industry, and you've got to think about society and how that works. And slowly but surely what we're trying to do is we're trying to build up a huge analytical device which might look scary and complicated here, but it's actually really useful to understand. And then what we do is we get actual lessons, actual transcripts of the actual lectures themselves once they understand it, and then we get them to read the lectures and then start to do their own analysis. I'll give you an example over here. So here, for example, we've got a situation where we're working with understanding engine configurations. And once they've done that, we will then get a lecture where we actually have a person doing the examples that we're talking about. The students get to read that. We've done the research ourselves, or the students have done the research, or my doctoral students have done the research. We've got these wonderful lectures which they can actually use and check out and start to understand how this works in a vocational context. So yeah, for example, this is the core kind of analytical tool which the students eventually to learn to work with. It's got craftsmanship, professionalism, self-management and resourcefulness, all the kinds of things we're looking for in our TVET students and our lecturers Obviously, you've got the analysis of curriculum and teaching and learning, but then crucially, you've got these methodological choices. Are they demonstrating and watching? Are they lecturing and listening? Are they demonstrating and then imitating? Are they instructing and then participating? Is it more to do with generalizing and coaching? So we've got all sorts of ways that the TVET pedagogic space works. And then what happens is, because it's difficult, we know it's difficult, we then will give the students a good example of how it actually works. This is from one of my good, excellent students, Mokena, who was working in Swaziland on mechanics, and he did some excellent lessons, got them. And then what we're going to do is we're going to structure it. We're going to show firstly how they must analyze it. We're going to take it through. We're going to give demonstrations of what all of them are, so the students can actually learn how to do the analysis. We're going to show them how to fill in the forms. We're going to show them how to think about it, how to do everything like that. And then once that's done, we slowly but surely get to a point where we do another lesson. And here's a wonderful lesson on this side, an early childhood development lecture by Sawela. Beautiful lesson done out in Umgungundlovu College, where she does this wonderful lesson where she dances with the students and she gets them really involved in how to teach kids. And what happens is they can watch that lesson, they can get the transcript of that lesson, and then they start the analysis of that lesson as well. And what happens when they start to do that, they land up in a situation where they start more and more to be able to really think about what vocational pedagogy is, not just in terms of a practical way, but also in terms of a theoretically informed way, which will take them forward, not only as lecturers, but also as future honors and masters students.